Hello, everybody. How are you? Thank you for coming to Power Women Summit. We're here with these lovely women to discuss mental health, which is an important topic today. First, I want to get into a really hard topic. Today, we lost Twitch to suicide, and it really hit home because this is someone who is always smiling, someone who brings so much joy, and struggled with something with mental health. I want each of you to discuss what that means and how important it is to check up on the people that you love.
Start in order, I guess. Yeah, I didn't know him too well, but when I did Dancing with the Stars, I got to know him and Allison and the family a little bit, and they were always just like, the life of the dance floor, on and off. And so, like you said, even if you think somebody is okay and somebody is always smiling and happy, and it doesn't mean that that might be accurate. And I think in a world of social media, and we all live that every single day, as you said, like the importance of checking up on the people that you think don't need to be checked on, just always being that person. And also, if you're on the other side of it, going out, and it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to communicate to the people that you love and trust, because they want to be there for you if they can.
You never know what someone's going through.
I think facilitating these kinds of conversations where we've seen mental health be destigmatized, and talking about it and locating issues and sources and what's triggering us and stuff. And it is such a spectrum. And so having, podcasts or certain kind of programming that's mindful of that struggle is so good to tune into, to listen to if you're curious about it, share it with your friends that might be going through something. This morning I was actually on an important sort of Zoom with folks that are working towards mental health with child performers. And so Allison Stoner was one of those people, and she's been sort of an advocate with me, and she was very distraught with it because she knows him quite well in the dance community. So I feel like everyone has felt the effect of it, as he was such a light in the community of social media. And I think we're all kind of confused, and it seems kismet here that we're here now talking about this. So thank you for starting with that, because you're facilitating those kinds of meaningful conversations as well, Eli. Thank you.
I think the last thing, you guys have said some beautiful statements, is just when it comes to mental health, a lot of the times it can be this, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to talk to this person I think is struggling. I don't know how to communicate that I'm struggling. And I think if we just get to this surface level of like anything, if you're reaching out and you don't know how to say it, it's just like, I'm going through something, I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure what I should do next. I just want to say that I feel different. Like that could be the stepping stone. Or if it's with someone that you love, it's, hey, I love you, and I'm always here if anything were to ever come up. You can always come to me. So I think a lot of times we don't say anything because we don't think we have the perfect sentence, but you don't need the perfect sentence. You just have to let someone know that you are seeking help or that you're there to help. And I think just those little things can make a big difference.
Absolutely, and just kind of going off that as well too, where this is a chance to be vulnerable and open up how we have struggled or how we've seen even friends struggle. So knowing that somebody who was, like we said, like such a light, like I remember Twitch from So You Think You Can Dance, like way back in the day. So it was heartbreaking this morning to see that, because for me, from a social media perspective too, he was somebody who always brought that positivity and wanted to have a community of people who were excited and energized, and so like literally the color yellow. So it's really sad to hear what's happened to him, and having the chance to sit down all together today and talk about this and be vulnerable, because mental health is human. It's something that we're all going to experience, and the more that we share with each other, I think the more that we feel a little bit less alone with it too.
I think when I heard the when I heard the news this morning, what I was reflecting on was that mental illness really is not biased. Like, it does not see status, gender, race. I grew up very privileged, and I feel like because of that, maybe people assume that because you have privilege, because you have money or all these things, that makes you exempt to having a mental health crisis or to be struggling with mental illness. And so I think what that teaches us is that it can affect anyone. And we can't just assume that because people have these things that they're not struggling. And that gives us all the more motivation to reach out to our loved ones. And also, I think it's important to note that NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, launched the 988 hotline, which is a suicide prevention hotline, but also a mental health crisis hotline. A lot of the times when someone's experiencing a crisis, a mental health crisis, 911 is called, and they can either be incarcerated or, you know, the worst case scenario. And so this hotline really provides the right type of medical attention that people need when they're struggling. So I just wanted to highlight that today.
I'm sorry, it's just such an honor to be speaking on a panel of women who are so intelligent on such an incredibly complicated subject and so articulate. I think your question subtly sort of has two parts, right? Which is to speak to not only the person who's suffering from mental illness, but the person who loves them. And I think the thing about it that's so cunning for me is that I've suffered from depression. It's not my business to diagnose this person. I never met him. But I think it's fair to say that depression probably was some sort of an operative here. And that for me, from the inside of the experience, was even knowing that was what it was, because there is this sort of common presentation of depression as like, I can't get out of bed and I'm staring at the walls. And then there are all of these other myriad of symptoms, like I'm actually not speaking because my thoughts are racing so quickly that I can't get the words out. Or I'm compulsively hyper productive and high achieving because if I sit still, the depression will like catch me. And those were just things that I wouldn't have even known to identify as depression, because they're such like, I don't know, less publicized symptoms. But I think the thing that I kind of just want to say, and this feels a little risky to say, is that as the person who loves the person who's suffering, I think it's really important to relieve oneself of the responsibility to fix it, or to rescue, or to hold themselves responsible for being the solution. And I just love what these women have said about like offering safety, because from the inside of it, the accompanying messages that go with the sensations of depression are shame. Don't tell anyone about this. If someone knows this about you, all the love will go away. You're worse than other people. Other people are doing a better job. And it's an extremely alienating experience. So just creating that container of whatever you have going on inside, the love is not going away, I think is a good alternative to feeling like, and I'm the one who will fix it, you know?
Now, the conversation surrounding mental illness and mental health really, I would say, is new in the past 10 years, because before that, people really weren't having the conversation about mental health. You know, companies weren't giving mental health days. At what point did you decide for yourself that you wanted to take care of your mental health? And Victoria, I'll start with you.
I was an athlete my whole life, and so the conversation around mental health, you're right, it wasn't being talked about, and when it was very stigmatized as this weakness. So especially growing up an athlete or not, if you grew up a high achiever, determined in the classroom, successful, you just didn't want to associate with something that was considered a weakness or like a ding on your record. So I never thought depression or anxiety would affect me, which was a privileged way of thinking, looking back now. But then entering college, I played volleyball at USC, fight on, any Trojans in the room, yes? And it was such an intense environment. I'm sure Nastia, me, it was an intense environment. I know you've had much intenser environments, Olympian. But it was a struggle and it was a challenge, and that was the first time I started struggling with anxiety, depression, and eating disorder. And I was doing all of this struggling in secrecy with so much shame. And I ended up going to therapy, which was really hard. Upon going, I started to learn, oh, yeah, these things have led to this feeling in me. These things in my life that aren't balanced or that I'm not paying attention to are the reason for my anxiety or have led me to the depression. And they're all things I can work through. they're all things that happen to everyone. So this feeling I have inside that I'm the only one, I lost in some way, I should be ashamed in some way, wait, that's not true. And so that is what led me to speak out, start sharing my story, because I didn't want someone else to feel as alone as I did. I wanted them to know from the get-go, hey, if you're experiencing this, a lot of people do. You know, everyone in their life will experience a mental health issue or have someone they love that does. So we're all touched by this. So that was the reason that I first spoke out.
Now, all of you are very involved in social media. Now, social media is a double-edged sword. It can be something that is great for promotion, but can also be very detrimental to your mental health. How have you guys handled that? And I'll start with you.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I do social media full time, and it is the most incredible job on the planet because I get the chance to connect with people on a daily basis. And I think that it is for sure, like you said, a double-edged sword, and you can experience both sides of mental health from this, where I've had, for sure, you get these comments, but I've always seen mental health as this chance to be preventative, not reactive, where every day you have to remind yourself of your confidence, your worth, what your status on social media is doesn't pertain to who you are as a person, and that outside of the internet and the metaverse, you exist and you're worthy and you're wonderful. So even on the days that I get, more negativity, I still know from working before that moment, before that bad day, and slowly adding in a little bit of love to myself that it's going to be okay. And I've seen the other side of social media where I'm really, really fortunate, where my community is so positive and empowering. That's what I wanted my channel to be. So being able to have this audience where everyone is so empowering and uplifting to me as well, where I can share my negative days and I get this incredible feedback from people of just like hoping to see me do better tomorrow and hoping to see me feel better tomorrow. Social media is amazing for the chance to get to bring people together, and I've really been lucky that I've gotten to see both sides and ended up on a side where people are really excited to just stay positive and keep doing well.
Now, Christy, I would love to know, because there's almost a stigmatization when it comes to parents who want to put their kids in Disney, Nickelodeon, anything like that, and you grew up in the limelight at a very young age. How was that mentally to you at growing up at a young age?
So I've been thinking about this a lot lately because, we do have this whole new media generation of YouTube kid stars, and my daughters are 6, turning 6 and 3, and we watch YouTube. And I even have a friend who is considered a YouTube family, and I have an interesting take on this, which I'll condense. But there is a difference between a stage parent and a parent who has a child in the industry. And it's mostly because you have to be the parent first. And I think that's something that I just realized. And I would probably not put my kids in the industry because I don't feel like the infrastructure is quite there yet, but I'm working on it. And I think there's merit in the arts. Like, I wouldn't want to take the arts away from my children. Like, we go to the Nutcracker every year, and it's like, it's so important that the arts are existing for children and their imagination and whatnot. But when you exploit that imagination, that love of the arts in a way that's commodified and, almost oppressive in like a very long-term way that you can't even quantify case by case, and there's no data, there's not yet at least. So it's a very complex, multi-layered issue. It's something that I address a lot with guests on my podcast who've been in the industry, and it's it's the one thing I can say is that it's not going away. And what I find, just being sort of anecdotally a person who's suffered through the journey of it, it's like you are so influential to so many people's kids, yet you are suffering in ways that they would never want their kids to suffer. So, yeah, it is a double-edged sword, and I guess that's just what it is.
Now, Nasi, I would love to know, you're an Olympic gold medalist. Now, how much pressure was there to represent an entire country, and how did that affect your mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think very similar. Like, when I competed, I'd like to say thank God I didn't have social media, to be completely honest, only because I can't imagine, the amount of pressure and the expectations that I just put on myself. Like, that alone was enough to be so nervous, so anxious, like all of those things. And then you start thinking about like your coaches, all the people that helped you get there, and then your gym and your teammates, and then your home state, and then it's the country, and then now with social media, it's all these people that just have an opinion. And while I value and obviously everyone has the right to have that opinion, I can't imagine competing on the biggest stage with so much pressure on your shoulders, then having other people's thoughts and opinions about the color of your leotard, or the way that your hair is done, your makeup, your floor music. Like, there's so many different aspects to performing on that world's biggest stage. And when I go back, yes, physically, I trained, quote unquote, my whole life up until I was 18 for that one moment. And I knew that I was physically more prepared than I had ever been in my entire life. But mentally, that was the mental challenge, right? Like, I didn't do a different beam routine in the Olympic all-around final than for the first time. Like, it was the same exact beam routine that I had done 10 times a day, like training 7 hours a day, 6 days a week for over a decade, but only one beam routine mattered.
Just got full body chills.
And
Fucking
so,
awful.
yeah.
So dumb.
And I remember, like, it's honestly a little hard for me to go back and like watch some of it sometimes, because I put myself back into that. Like, I see like the look in my eye and knowing every single thing riding on that one moment. And not to compare different industries or anything, but especially like, or other sports, but in gymnastics specifically, like, your body changes. Like, so many things happen that you really are lucky if you get one chance. And so I remember thinking that specifically, like, you're not going to get another opportunity or another chance. And that's like the worst thing to think when you're about to be on a 4-inch wide balance beam. But I do remember the confidence that my dad, who was actually my coach, and my mom, they just instilled that in me, that, it's, your worth is not defined by this end result. And in a sport like gymnastics that is so subjective, that, I hate when people say that you lost the gold medal, you won a silver medal, or a bronze medal. But I remember specifically the year before the Olympics when I won a silver medal on the uneven bar finals. And my dad, after the competition, because judges and everybody knows each other, and he was like, out of curiosity, like, what was it? And she literally said, I just didn't really like her. And so it was yeah. And I'm like, I literally could not have done anything else. Because I was like, oh, was it my leotard? Like, you start thinking, like, could I have pointed my pinky toe a little bit better? It just comes down to. So I think sometimes learning to let go of that control that you think you have, because you don't have it, And I think that moment for me, then at the Olympics, was just like, I can do my absolute best and I might still not come out on top, and that's okay. I was so fortunate that I was able to come out on top, but it didn't define who I was, and I thought for so long that it would, that the result would always define who I was as a human. And I think when I realized my parents were still going to love me if I didn't win the gold medal. It wasn't about that. I wanted it so badly, but like, that was what my mom always said. Like, I just want you to be safe and happy, and like, cool, if you come home with a medal, awesome. We're still going to love you just as much. Your dog's still going to love you just as much, And I think it's so tough in this world with social media to remind ourselves that sometimes, but I think it's super important for our mental health. Like, we're not defined by any accomplishment, success or quote unquote failure.
I love that. That was amazing. Now, we live in a very politically divided country right now. And I know you've worked on The Handmaid's Tales, and a lot of people have said it's like we're living in The Handmaid's Tales. I want to know from each of you how that's mentally affected you, the political divide in this country the past 6 years.
I'm so not prepared to answer this question, but I'm going to try. I mean, like, can you come back to me? Here's the funny thing about The Handmaid's Tale. I shoot that in Canada, where, like, it's sort of like, you know, Roe versus Wade is getting overturned, and I'm on set about to do, like, a close-up, and the Canadians around me are just like, who versus what? Now, like, it's just not. So, in a way, I'm going to regret everything I'm about to say. My programming is very black and white. And it's very the good, smart people who are from New York City and went to private schools and read the New York Times know better and are better. And I'm just admitting that's like the ground floor that I walked in on. And it's so crazy that I'm saying moving to LA really gave me mental health, because I was going to say that, like,
One of the few.
this town, like, is on the one hand, like, not suited for the mentally unstable, and only mentally ill people would ever come here and work here. But I think it has been becoming a part of, I mean, God, just the pandemic and the way that people held the pandemic in particular, becoming a part of a group of friends who actually saw things differently, and having to reconcile stuff that I would not have had to confront if I stayed in the bubble that I came from, has made me sort of come to terms with the fact that, and actually also playing a villain on TV, a really bad one, is that everyone is doing what they're doing for a really good reason that matters to them. And everyone thinks that she is a great person, the hero maybe even of her story. And oh my God, to kind of be able to, like, detach from the label and, like, feel the heart underneath is has been, I think, the most humanizing thing that, had certain presidents and certain pandemics and certain, you know, party lines not been drawn, I could have stayed a much less loving person, like a much more rigid person. So the challenge has really softened me, because I've been unwilling to not believe in people, I think.
Now I want to transition over.
I'm
sorry.
the only one who had to answer
No,
the
no, no,
political
no,
question.
I back you
I
up.
felt
I
like
will
it
back
was a
you up.
topic that was like,
So
everyone was looking at me.
it's interesting how you say moving to LA was like for your mental health in a weird way. So I moved to Austin, Texas, 2 years ago, and I will say, I brag about it to everybody, and like I really love Austin. I do think that Texas is a really interesting state. I'm originally from Connecticut. I'm a Connecticut Yankee. I went to Barnard College, okay? And I am now in Austin, post Roe v. Wade, with 2 daughters. And I'm desperately trying to find, I found a really good girls' school that I think my daughter would be a really great candidate at, and I feel like the philosophy of that exists in Austin at this very particular school. You know what I mean? Like, it just makes it harder to find, but it is there, especially in Austin. But it was really hard. I actually went through a bit of real depression for the first time that I think I can actually, like, look myself in the mirror and be like, that was depression. With that. And my husband was really trying to understand how to be an ally. He's a former Marine. And so he joined the Marines after 9/11. He's very masculine guy. And like, he thought that moving to Texas would feel centered for him in a weird way, or like something like he would get from being there. And for me, it was more or less just like, let's just get out of the fires of Orange County, and pandemic made us do crazy things. But I did fall in love with that, and I started to put my roots down, and so my mental health was tested by it for sure. And now I do live in Texas, and I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I am probably the change that a lot of people fear there. And without going into every detail of what, my medical history is or whatnot, it's one of those things where I feel very strongly about all of this being changed back and improved even more. So let's just hope that Texas comes to its senses is all I can say. So that's all.
I agree. Now, Corinne, I want to talk to you. You're very open about your endometriosis, and you are very open about how the doctors pretty much told you that you didn't have it, and they told you that you were crazy. And to me, that was so mind-boggling because you're the daughter of Jamie Foxx, and to us, it's like someone who is an A-list Academy Award winner's daughter is being told by doctors that she's making it up. And so you really had to deal with a lot mentally there. How did you deal with that medical gaslighting?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even realize until I looked back that it was medical gaslighting because I just kept going to different doctors. They were like, your pain is normal. This is normal. And I was like, is it normal to be in the fetal position on the floor, throwing up when I'm having my period, not being able to go to school, not being able to go to work? This is normal? And they're like, yep, that's normal. And I would go from doctor to doctor. It took about 9 months of consistent doctor appointments and getting probed and getting, just inspected over and over again before I even heard the word endometriosis. And when I did, there's not a lot of public education about it. I'd only heard of Lena Dunham's experience with it, so I thought it meant I needed a hysterectomy and I wasn't going to be able to have kids. And I asked my doctor in the room, am I going to be able to have kids? And he said, I don't know, and left me alone in the room with my legs in these stirrups, and I just sobbed. And I never considered that for my future. I've always wanted to be a mother. Luckily, I found the right doctors, and that's not the case, and I was able to get the right surgery, and I didn't have to get a hysterectomy. But after all of that, after I was able to even get treatment, then I could look back and be like, wow, what an experience that was to be told that my pain was not real. And also, I've been able to reflect on the connection between chronic pain and mental health, right? People, even if it's not endometriosis, whether it's, just being in a wheelchair or being disabled in any type of way, what that does to your psyche, not being able to go to work, not being able to take care of your kids, not being able to show up in the world the way that you want to, the way that affects, depression and anxiety and panic attacks. And I'm actually working right now with the Endometriosis Foundation of America and NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, to do a joint campaign to talk about the connection between chronic pain and mental illness, because it's there. And there's so many people that they have to focus on their physical health, but then also have to take care of their mental health. And that's a huge burden to bear.
Absolutely. And I think it's also, it's also interesting because it makes you think about how many other women are not are given medical gaslighting, who aren't given the proper treatments that they need throughout this country.
1 in 10 women have endometriosis, which is wild to me that most women don't even know what that is. We were never taught about it. And I think that number is a lot higher because so many women have been told their pain is normal. So just for every woman out here, that if you are in debilitating pain, that is not normal, and you deserve treatment and you deserve relief.
Now, Victoria, you're a great TED Talk speaker. How do you mentally prepare to give speeches in front of so many people?
Well, fortunately, I do have a little bit in my blood. Like in middle school and high school, if we did a class project, I'd always be like, okay, if you guys do it, I will sell it to the teacher. So I had a little bit of I was always outgoing. However, what I'm talking about isn't just something that's surface level. When I get on stage speaking about mental health, I'm usually going back and recalling my experiences in hopes of normalizing those in the audience who might be feeling that way too. And I think the thing that always helps me is 2 things. And I think this could apply to just life, whether you speak or not. But the first is just touching the one. So if there's just one person in the room today that resonated with what Corinne said, or one person who felt moved by what Nastia or any of these girls have said, like one person being affected or inspired or influenced by you, like that's enough. It doesn't have to be every single person you meet. And the second thing is, all that we can ever do is be ourselves. That's all that we can do. And so if I get on stage and I'm myself, and I try to be true to who I am, and I try to just connect to the one, like similar to letting go what's not in your control, like that's what I can do. And I think also in life, when you show up to work and you show up to your friends or your day-to-day, like all you can do is be true to who you are, to live a fulfilling life, and doing that inspires people. I think we also are in this day and age where if you're not a New York Times bestselling author, if you're not getting a promotion, if you're not posting this on Instagram, like you're not doing enough or you're not succeeding. But some of the most inspirational, moving people I've ever met in my life are the people who are just 100% like shamelessly themselves. And that inspires me to then go be myself in the next room or in the next conversation. So, you know, on the stage and in life, I would just say what helps me in those moments is remembering all I can do is be me, and that just connecting with one person is what matters.
Speaking of, yes, absolutely. Speaking of connecting with one person, I want to hear from each of you who your mental health accountability partners are. And Anna, I want to start with you.
Hi. So I think that with accountability, it's kind of like who's your person that grounds you. And I always think of my sister. She's the first person I call. She's the person who, when I'm having my thoughts running rampant, she will remind me to take a step back and realize, like, there's so much more to this world than the little things that are bothering you right now, and you're so much more worthy than the issues that you're facing. Like, you deserve peace and you deserve grounding, and just being able to take a step back from your problems and see where a solution is instead of continually overthink or overworry them. Having somebody like that's great, and so it's definitely my sister.
Nasia, how about you?
I would probably say my mom. You know, so I'm the only child, so both my parents were world and Olympic champion gymnasts. So the combination of that with, I guess, good genes helped me get to where I was. But they were so adamant. They tried to get me not to do gymnastics because did not work out for them. Because they knew how hard the sport was, and as, you know, their only child, they wanted me to be happy, and I found my happiness through the sport. And so they were like, okay. And I think the best thing that, you know, my parents both taught me was that, you know, you will never be, similar as what I said, like you're not going to be defined by what you do. We want you to find something that you love and something that you're passionate about, not something that we're passionate about, because we'll always be passionate about that, but you have to love it. And so my mom was my first coach when I was like 4 or 5, and if I was tired, she would say, okay, sweetie, sit down. My dad was like, okay, good luck. She's going to get really far. But my dad started coaching me, and my mom truly, I always called it like, it was like a triangle. And all 3 of us were equally as important in this little team that we had going towards the Olympics, because obviously me being the athlete, my dad being the coach, but my mom held us all together. You know, she got it on all ends. If I came home crying and frustrated, it was like, you know, at my dad, and then like she had to deal with it from her husband. So it was definitely challenging, and she was our rock, like the most supportive, like every single time, no matter what, she just always knew what to say. And it wasn't ever like, you know, if I came home crying and telling her like, it's too hard, I just want to quit, she was like, that's fine, you can quit, but not today. And she'd make me go back to the gym the next day, the next day, the next day, until I had one good day. And then she would say, okay, great, you can quit now. Let's enroll you back into public school, find something else that you want to do. And so the more, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, I never said I wanted to quit. And so the moral of that story that I take with me forever, and it's not just gymnastics, it's life, it's relationships, work, you can never quit on a bad day. Yeah.
Chrissy, how about yourself?
Oh boy, it's been a rocky road because so I got sober from alcohol when I found out I was pregnant with my daughter who's about to turn 6. And so it's been really wonderful. There's been so many gifts in sobriety. My husband, who does suffer from chronic stomach pain and like IBS, and he's been gaslit a lot, and with the VA and everything else, and he just has seen so much and done so much. And when somebody who's been to war, comes to you and you're like, but I was a privileged child actor and like I'm just so, I deserve to be an alcoholic and whatever. Like they kind of look at you and they're like, there's literally people everywhere dying, and like you need to understand that you are not unique, and like you need to get over yourself, so to speak. So it was some tough love. I'm not going to tell you that that's like the easiest way to stomach that kind of I don't know if you want to call it support, but he really has changed my life. Like we're talking like really, brass tacks, like do it, commit, be in this marriage, be a mom, be the best you can be, or just don't. And for me, I think for so long I struggled with my identity and where I fit, and tried to like fit me kind of like as a square peg in the Hollywood hole. And I was just like, fine. And then that's another reason why I was like, Austin was sort of just extracting myself from that mentality. So my husband, a roundabout way of telling you, my husband is for better and for worse, my inspiration. Thank you very much.
Corinne, how about yourself?
I was going to say my partner as well, my boyfriend. At the beginning of this year, a close friend of mine passed away from colon cancer. And I, went into a really extreme depression, and I'm still even dealing with the emotions of that. And to have somebody there who, like you were saying, doesn't feel the need to save me, doesn't feel that responsibility to push me in any way, but can just hold me, that can just be there, can just experience this with me, has been so helpful for me to process this loss. And so I feel like if you're somebody who loves somebody who's struggling with their mental health, like you were saying, it's being there, it's showing up, it's saying, I'm not leaving, and I'm here when you want me. Because sometimes I didn't want him. Sometimes I was like, I want to be alone, I want to be in a hole, but can you just be right outside the door? Just so I can know somebody's there, And so sometimes that's what it is, right? And so to have his support this last year, almost year now, has been huge for me.
Genevieve?
Yeah. I've needed a lot of therapy. I've needed lots of therapy. I think that what I sort of started my arc in this career believing, and I mean the women on the stage, like the most like high profile people in the most incredibly competitive industries. I think I really began by believing that my body was like this pesky little thing I had to overcome in order to like achieve what I wanted. And if only I could like ignore absolutely every signal it was giving me and just kind of like dominate it, I would open up this like box of my dreams. And that is, to go back to, I think it was your first question, like that is really when my body started completely failing me, that I kind of knew that maybe mental health was like a thing to pay attention to. But that for me, it's actually been this process of like, okay, you can have the life where you are the leading lady who is given that position because she's pretty and she's thin and she's at work on time. Or perhaps rather than your body being this thing that you have to overcome in order to thrive, your body is your muse. And you're given these opportunities because you are a muse. And what do you want to inspire? And like, let this thing be the oracle of like all of your wild, weird greatness. And so I was going to say that the person that holds me accountable is my specifically somatic therapist, so much so that I am now training to become a somatic therapist. That's how much help I need. It's like, we're going to have to learn this one from the inside. But Yeah, and I think also having the willingness to like pivot and say, this one particular healer, I have learned so much from you, and I'm actually feeling like maybe I'm ready to. It's so humbling to try to start over with someone else, but like a lot of people have a lot to offer, and so like having different helpers, I think, is a really worthwhile thing to listen to.
And lastly, Victoria.
Mine is my mom. Love her so much. Last week I was pretty low. Mom picks me up. We go to Target, Christmas shop. Can't ask for something better. But I do want to riff on what you were just saying, because I think body image is such an important topic, and I certainly have been affected with an eating disorder and recovering from that, and I'm now an intuitive eater. But it's like, if I could just say one thing, and I know there's a lot of women in this room, like we come out the womb being like, has anyone been insecure about the weight they were when they were born? I remember, literally, my brothers would tease me, you came out at 8 pounds and we were 7. Like, literally, from when we could first, I mean, you can't even remember the last time you didn't care about what you ate and what you looked like. And so I think we need to recognize, okay, we're in a society that has literally told us the most important thing about you is how you look. And it's asking the scale, can I like myself today? Based on this, my gravitational pull to the earth? I mean, it's ridiculous. I haven't weighed myself in 4-5-ish years now, but I'm just so passionate about like other women recognizing this cycle that we're kind of in, and that there's so much more to who we are, to life, to the relationships that we have than the size of our jeans and, you know, what the scale says. So I love that you brought that up, and I know that it's been something that's been a huge pivot for me in my mental health journey, is realizing my body is a part of me. It's not like I wear this thing and I get to hate it and pick it apart and want to change it every day. I am one, and this is my mechanism to go through life and to feel a beating heart and to hug the people that I love, and to exercise, not because I hate myself, but because it feels good, you know, and to eat, not because this is lower calorie, but because I love the taste and it's fuel. And so I don't really have a buttoned-up point to that, other than I just would love to share it with all of you lovely ladies.
Here. I think like the point you're making is so valid, which is that to talk about mental health as though it's this thing that's like bifurcated from somatic health is like it's just not my experience. And also it's such a trigger for me to this kind of unspoken assumption that like mental health is happiness. I think it's really when I kind of came to feel like, oh, mental health is the whole color wheel. It's very big sad. It's deep anger. And it's about, for me, creating a container around that makes every single one of those colors really safe. Like, did you mention the Nutcracker earlier? I often think about that woman who comes out with the great big skirt and all of the ballerinas come out from under it, and I'm like, oh, there she is.
I was her last year.
You're
They asked me to
kidding.
be
Oh
I did
my
a
God.
cameo on stage, and my girls were like blown away.
I think about her all the time because I'm like, here she is, my sadness. So, there's my like sense of humor, and I'm just like, as long as I don't overly attach to one of these children as though it's like I'm the child and I'm not this giant skirt that's holding all of them, I'm okay.
I love it. Well, that's all the time we have, ladies. But I want to end this
I'm cured.
with
Personally.
I want to end this with doing something that might be strange, but I want all of us to just smile for 5 seconds, because I think that, you know, in today's society, a lot of us don't smile enough. So let's all do an exercise together and just smile. You guys ready? You ready? Just smile for 5 seconds. Just smile. Look at the person next to you and just smile. See, look at all these beautiful smiles.
We're like, did a man just ask us to smile? I'm kidding.
Wrong tree, honey. Wrong tree.
Okay, now everyone make
To
a
be
resting
fair,
bitch
it's
face.
Eli. It's Eli, to be fair.
It's me.
Eli gets a
Come on.
pass.
I think I get a pass. Trust me. But I want to thank you, ladies, so much. You guys are all amazing
Thank you, thank you,
and
thank you.
making such a difference in society. So thank you.